Welcome to a new segment called Threat Assessment, where we take a brand new card that came out in the last data pack and we try it out. And so I'm trying out a Skorp deck with Trojan Horse, which is in our opening hand. And we're just going to score out a Standoff, get an extra card, get some money back, and turn on some of our archers and Tithoniums and that such ice later on. We've got a pretty good hand, actually. No agendas, which is fine, although this deck wants to rush. Plays a lot rushy behind some cheapo ice, forces the runner to make some really bad decisions, and then RFGs their breaker. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So I discarded the Marcus Batty because I don't really have any ice yet that I want to use it with, and I have NGO. I really want to keep the NGO for right now. Really want to get some money so I could get that threat assessment online. We have a lot of trashing, program trashing in this hand. Got Hunter Seeker, and so we're just going to ice up. So we're going to put some barriers on R&D HQ. Nothing too spectacular. Our opponent did manage to throw down an employee strike, which makes me very sad. It's not something we really want to see, but there's not much we can do about it right now. We just have to hope to top deck a hostile. Oh, there we do. We grab a hostile and get that strike out of here. And sadly, because my corp ability is not available when the card is trashed, I do not get to remove it from the game. And our opponent is just setting up. We're playing against a smoke, and basically the goal here is to just get enough money and start pushing out as fast as possible before smoke gets set up. If she gets set up and Netmarker gets enough credits on it, we won't be able to blow up her stuff, and it's very likely she's running SACCon or something like that. We're just going to take some money and throw out a card in a remote, see if we can bait them in for a run. Doesn't look like they're going to take the bait. We probably should have RFG'd that gamble, but it's not a huge deal. Alright, so we're going to advance the NGO and throw down some ice just to make it look like an agenda. And this is all just sort of fun and games right now. We really just want to get tons of money as fast as possible and threaten always to remove a breaker from the game. Sadly, I'm not getting any of my agendas. This deck runs a 10 agenda suite, I believe. 6. I think it's actually 11 agendas. It runs, no, it runs 10 agendas. It runs 3 SSL, it runs 2 Graft, 3 Hostile Takeover, and 2 Standoffs. And we've only found a Hostile Takeover and 2 Standoffs. And this is a bit of a strange game because for about 10 turns I don't find any of my 3/5s. It's very unfortunate, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I'm just advancing this NGO, see if I can bait some runs here. I can't, so just going to pop the NGO, get some money, put down another NGO. I mean, how many NGOs can I possibly have, right? Our opponent Diesel's looking for a breaker, most likely. He's thinking this has to be an agenda. So there's an SMC. Let's see if he's going to run. We're going to remove the Deuces Wild from the game. Probably should have just waited, but it's all fine. So it runs here. We are going to be able to get him to res and use, we're going to res the Enigma, get him to use that SMC. It would have been better, I think, just to RFG the SMC, just in case there was some sort of recursion in this deck. But here comes Refractor. And he's going to see the NGO front and trash it. Now, the reason I let him do that instead of gaining credits is because that Trojan Horse's wording requires that the runner access at least 1 card. So if I popped it, he would access 0 cards in the remote, and therefore not... I would not be able to use Trojan Horse. So here we go. We're going to try it. Trojan Horse. If I throw down this Standoff in the remote as well, because we do have a Hunter Seeker. And now this is really weird. I took a little bit of time here thinking about the proper amount because I couldn't get the wording in my head right. So it's the difference between the traces. This is a very, very strange card. So there were a couple other cards that were like that. One in Wayland, another one in Wayland. Power Grid Overload was similar, that you trash something equal to the difference in trace. Goodbye refractor. And now our opponent's got to be thinking that, well, if they have a backup, they're going to go get it immediately, right? Oh, there's a dummy box. So unfortunate for my opponent, they did have some program trashing prevention in the form of dummy box, but it came a turn too late, and that is very unfortunate for my opponent. I bet they really wish they had it in hand at that time. Well, now they're going to have to hold on to programs for the rest of the game. So that's both good and bad. So they're going to have to throw other things out and just hold on to at least one program each turn, which isn't terrible, but Smoke does not have that many programs. Okay, so we're going to res this Wraparound, I think, or not. I think that I decided not to res. No, I did res. Okay, we are going to res the Wraparound. So we're going to see what happens here, whether he's going to just bounce or go through. And I think it's just a little bit too expensive. If their breaker is divey, then it's just a bit too expensive to get through. I think it's not really that much not worth it. So I think we're just going to score the standoff. Or we're not. We're going to double advance the standoff. And Hedge Fund, I probably should have IPO'd there instead for the extra credit, but oh well. Maybe we are trying to really bait him in here. So we'll see if they have a breaker. And here's the SMC use. And they have Blackstone. Okay, that gets through half of our server. And there's another SMC, all right. So, and the question is, can they get through everything? They have 4 stealth credits. They'll get 1 more from Netrunner and 1 more credit from their Cyberdelia, just a regular credit, but that's still really good. We were not really worried about Film Critic because we saw Strike. There's a Divey. Okay, that's expensive, but it does get through our server. It costs them a bunch. So we now have the option of going archived. So we can best defense. We can't best defense archived Trojan. So we're just going to throw out the best, or the Hunter Seeker, excuse me, not best defense, Hunter Seeker. We're just throw out the Hunter Seeker. He is going to trash misdirection in order to keep that program from being trashed. That makes sense. So I think here we're going to archive for the Trojan Horse. We're just going to keep recurring these things forever. Like, that's our goal here. And now our opponent really needs to get some money in order to not have to trash another program from hand. And if we had some agendas, we'd actually probably be pushing this turn because of it. So running HQ, he's going to start charging up his Netrunner. Netrunner is very oppressive once it gets going. There's not much you can do about it. You can Hunter Seeker it, but with Dummy Box on the table, it's a lot less appealing, especially since Smoke usually has more resources than programs. So we are going to Trojan Horse one more time, see if we can get rid of one of these programs. It's going to cost us a lot. And now that I've gotten used to the math here, he's got 3 credits. Yeah, so he's have to have a trace of 12, I think. Yeah. Trace of 12. Gonna prevent it. And now Smoke is slowly running out of programs. We are going to RFG that just in case there's some weird shenanigans. And we can just throw that in the remote, and this archer as well. Now, because I run only 5 3/5s, the deck kind of feels like it has no agendas. It's a 44 card deck, but the agenda density is so low that you kind of just don't need to defend centrals all that much unless they start doing some real deep digs. And getting the archer was pretty good, though I definitely think that we want to throw this Hortum down because we've gotten rid of the refractor, and the only thing we're really worried about is that divey. So if we can throw the Hortum down on like R&D, we can just lock them out of R&D after we triple advance it. So that's something I'm thinking about doing in the next couple turns. And now they're just going to be getting money. They're going to be running for free, gaining money with Cyberdelia, and we're not going to really be able to do that much. So here I imagine we're going to score and it's gain some money. No, we're going to archive back something. Maybe. I think right now the better play would be to score. Yeah, so let's just score this. Get some money. Next turn we can throw the Hortum on R&D. We've been very fortunate not to see more agendas, but even if we saw more agendas, we'd probably be archiving back the Batty, throwing it into the remote, and then sitting back on Archer, but it's getting a little too late to do that. So our opponent's going to see an additional card. Yep. And does not see anything. Good news for us. And what happened here is our opponent just wanted to use Netmarker to draw and accidentally click the gain a credit. So we're just going to fix that really fast. And I like the security testing in Smoke. That's actually pretty cool. This has got to be one of the cooler includes I've seen Smoke in a long time. I used to see it a little bit, but now, you know, Netmarker is very good, but Smoke is definitely the Glacier killer right now, and there's a lot of Glacier in the meta, so yeah. Alright, so we draw one for first click, see if we can hit anything that we need. We don't. Let's throw this on R&D and probably IPO. This is okay. I would have liked to see the Enigma on archives right now, because if we manage to kill that Divey, which we might eventually, then we're going to want that on archives. Okay, so we don't res on R&D. Our opponent's going to access two cards. That still doesn't hit anything. That's good. So he goes R&D, or HQ, excuse me, making some money. Now they are super rich. I want to just point out that this economy of Cyberdelia and Netmarker is just making so much money. There's really no way I could stop it. So we're just going to advance, advance, advance. He can't run there anymore. So that's a big blow to our opponent, since their refractor's gone now. The only thing we really need to do is find our second Hortum, which is somewhere in the deck. If we throw that on the remote, we're good. We probably can't lose the game at all. There is a good chance that we flood out and can't score in the remote before then, though, and that is a serious concern. So right now I'm thinking, how am I going to prevent the remote lock? So I take a look at my opponent's deck and take a look at my opponent's hand. My opponent only has a couple of cards left, which means that they probably have maybe 1 or 2 more programs left. They're just going to be running HQ just to build up their turning wheel counters and Netmarker counters. But there's nothing I can do about this. Okay. There's Trojan Horse, which right now is seeming a little bit bad. Not because it isn't doing its work, it already did a ton of work, but because the opponent is so rich. What am I going to do about it? So instead, I'm going to archive back Batty and throw Batty in the remote. Now, the opponent does not know that I do have an archer on the remote. They might suspect that, but yeah, and here's my opponent talking about why they have not yet seen any agendas, any 3/5s. It's like, I don't know. Actually, that's sort of unusual for this deck. It usually finds them quickly. It draws pretty fast. It has fast tracks. I don't really want to use the fast track though because it's just not safe. So I'll throw the Enigma on archives, because if I do manage to get that Divey out of the game, archives will be safe. So they run out the remote. I'm going to res Batty and fire the archer, try to fire the archer sub. So I'm going to bid 0 here. 2 or 0 or 2. 0. And we get it. So let's fire it. So this is another program they're going to have to lose from hand. And then they have to break the archer, which probably doesn't feel too good. But they have infinite money, so it doesn't matter. They toss Switchblade, which is telling me that they're running out of cards. They're running out of programs to throw to Dummy Box, and they no longer have an answer to Archer besides Divey. Now that's a huge deal. If I can get another Batty on the remote, then I think I might have this game locked up. The opponent has not tried to run on R&D yet, because if they did, they'd face plant into the Hortum, and I'd get to search my deck for a couple of cards, and that might actually just seal the game, because then I'll get the other Hortum, put it on the remote, and that's it. But now we're a little bit worried about being flooded out, because there aren't that many cards left in our deck, and the opponent can just see our hand every single turn. There's our first SSL. It doesn't make me happy. So my inclination usually is to draw when this happens, and I see a Graft. Okay, not great. So we can draw one more time, or we can so here my plan is we can overdraw. We can throw the SSL on the remote. Ooh, Tithonium. It's not terrible. It is a bit wonky. I don't want to install it last click, so my thinking here is that I will overdraw. I found a Batty. That would have been better the click previous. So I'm going to throw the Graft out. I'm going to throw out the Ice Wall. Oh, actually, no, I could... yeah, the Ice Wall. And we're going to hope the opponent doesn't just wipe our hand, as if we can get this Batty in the remote. Looking back on this, one thing we could have done is just thrown the SSL on the remote, and they might have gone there instead of HQ. But here they're going to run HQ and see our whole hand. Yep, that's unfortunate. And now what we need to draw is Hunter Seeker. So they're going to go up to 6 points. It's a big deal. But keep in mind there are only 3 3/5s left in the deck. And they aren't running R&D, so they don't know what's on top. They can't get into R&D, I should rephrase. Once the runner gets above like 6 or 7 credits on Netmarker, it's like they have infinite money. It's kind of insane. Okay, our opponent discarded Employee Strike, which I think was a mistake, because this is going to happen. So here goes our Hunter Seeker, which we just top decked. I'm going to blow up the Divey. Now let's see if they have anything left. They don't, so we're going to RFG the Divey. Oof, and out of programs. Okay. So now all they have is HQ pressure. They can't get in to the remote because they don't have Switchblade or Divey. They can't get into archives. So any agendas we draw in archives are safe. We can throw in archives and be safe. Potentially we could fast track next turn. Excuse me. One concern though is that if we draw runner agenda after we're trying to score it, we could have the problem of we won't have enough agendas to score out, or they could just run HQ and get it. So if we throw one in the remote at double advance, the next turn draw an agenda, we have to spend that turn advancing it, or we can overdraw, toss it in archives, and then score. So that's another option and something we need to consider. It puts us in a weird spot where if we draw too many agendas in a row, we're just going to lose, but we have the game like locked up now. So if we draw another Hortum, we're set. We can just put that on R&D, excuse me, HQ, and be done. So we're going to gain some from SSL. See a Graft. Okay. Stall advance. We've got to do this. There's not much else we can do. So I like Graft in this deck quite a lot, and this is going to be an interesting and somewhat unique situation. Because I've RFG'd their Code Gatebreaker, we're going to end up drawing an SSL, which is terrible, but we have 4 cards in hand, right? So we can use Graft to get 3 more cards in our hand, discard the SSL, and then just have a really solid chance next turn to fast track, install, advance a thing, or we can just wait until we get our next agenda. So we got Sapper, which I love in this deck because at this point they have no way to break a sentry. If they run HQ and see our hand for whatever reason, they lose their last breaker. We get our Hortum and a Hedge Fund. Toss out the SSL and the Tithonium. Nah, the Trojan Horse. We have done our job. Trojan Horse, you have been fantastic this game. So with less than 10 cards in our deck, our opponent's going to run our hand, probably use, they've seen the Sapper, so looks like there's going to use Turning Wheel, see all our entire hand, see the Sapper, lose the breaker, and call it. And that is game number 1. We've got one more game for you, and we'll be right back in just a minute. And we are back with game number 2. Our opening hand is pretty mediocre. We have an NGO, 2 pieces of ice, Hunter Seeker, and an Archive Memories. It's not awful, but you really can't let these kinds of decks go long because they're liable to just lose on R&D. So we're gonna mulligan it, and we get a much better hand. We're up against Leela, piloted by Runaway, and this should be an interesting game. So we're going to start off with the Hostile, I believe. Just score the Hostile, get it out of our hand. Agendas are liabilities in this matchup unless you have extra clicks, so we might try some never advancing in the remote after we ice up. Well, Leela is not enticed to run turn 1 if they can't get value out of their ability, but we might see a Dirty Laundry here or something like that. The next turn, we're going to be thinking about just icing up centrals, possibly leaving HQ exposed, and yep, so just some resources from Leela. And so we find SSL. So now I'm tempted to go Tithonium on the remote, Wraparound, either also on the remote or on R&D. But I think here I'm going to go on the remote. I think this is a mistake. I was worried about Inside Job because, first of all, I know this player, and I know that this player runs 2 or 3 Inside Jobs, and so we were likely to just lose an agenda flat out. So what we're going to do is double ice the remote, hope to have them whiff on R&D for a turn. And that's not too awful, actually, because the big problem here is that if we don't get off to a quick start, Leela's going to slowly take us apart. He's got a decent start with double daily casts and a hotel. So we've seen NGO. Let's double advance this agenda and hedge fund. Now, triple advancing the agenda is also a good play here. My thoughts, however, are that if we do score this, he'll bounce the Leela will bounce the ice, and we'll get to replay it to R&D to shore up R&D for a while, and we'll sit on 4 points for a while, which is not terrible. So we have a legwork on HQ. The legwork's going to just clear out our NGO, unfortunately. We kind of did want that. But early multi-access is what Leela wants to be doing. They're not sure what kind of deck I'm playing, so I'm going to remove the legwork. We do not want same old legwork. My targets for the ability on Skorp are always, there's only two. There's breakers, and then there's multi-access. So if we run into a bunch of Maker's Eyes, we're gonna have to try to RFG one of them or something like that. But legwork is one I don't mind getting rid of, and inside job is one I don't mind getting rid of as well, because it makes our centrals harder to defend and our remotes harder to defend. Now, the question here is, what are we gonna do? We're gonna advance. Okay, we're just gonna score this out. We're going to let Tapworm fire for a turn, and then probably just purge it. I might even ice once, just to keep Leela out. So Archer on R&D, maybe the Wraparound on HQ. I'm not really sold on even icing HQ in this matchup. We haven't seen Turtle yet, and that would be the only reason I'd ice everything. More resources from Leela, so we're not going to bother using our ability on anything here, don't think. Now, I'm not sure what was wrong, what our opponent tried to do but didn't do right here. I think it was a draw first to find something else, or I'm not sure. Oh, I see. So the baby first and then the draw. That would make sense. So we have 3 ice. So our plan is going to be ice this turn or purge. And I'm on waffle back and forth and eventually settle on putting some ice on R&D. I believe. Yep. And draw and use our hedge fund. So that was a little weird. I should have drawn first if I was going to not purge this turn. And we are going to not remove anything. I don't know what I was doing. I guess we were communicating, and I wasn't sure if he had played something else. In any case, the turning wheel comes down, and he's going to start pummeling our HQ. He sees our Hunter Seeker. He's seen Ice Wall. None of those things should surprise him. So this is our purge turn. The only reason we wouldn't purge in this situation, I can see, is if we drew an SSL. Okay, so I'm glad we have removed the legwork. We draw Batty, but I think we're just going to purge. Purge and RFG the Tapworm. It's always difficult to back up. Once you've committed to RFGing something, even if the opponent has clicked their next turn, it will register that you used the ability on the opponent's turn, as opposed to even if you clicked the ability on your turn. So there's no like timestamp for when you click the ability. It basically says whenever you finish using the ability, that's when it determines that it's been used. So even though I clicked it before my opponent started their turn, I ended up doing it on their turn, so we had a little bit of a kerfuffle here. Our opponent's going to leg work us here, and there are a couple of reasons I don't like this play. The first of which is that there's only one new card in hand, and so there isn't going to be a whole lot of new information gained, and very unlikely that it's an agenda. One thing that would have been decent here is just power drawing for some breakers, and probably just getting more setup, because even though we're on 4 points, the opponent is playing a little bit like they're just about to lose, or they just are not considering that they're going to get very many accesses after this. So Polyp comes down, the second Tapworm, that's fine. We lost our Batty in the exchange, which is not bad actually. Having legwork there, the one reason legwork might be acceptable is they ended up clearing a Batty, but there's no reason to think that Batty was in our hand, other than the fact that we are Skorp and might be playing Batty. So we're just gonna purge and get rid of the Tapworm, RFG that card, and yep, see what our opponent does next. Polyp is also notoriously bad right now. It doesn't really hit that much. It doesn't help when you're playing instant sacrifice guys like Marcus Batty or NGO Front. It's pretty bad against us, so I wasn't really sure what our opponent thought they were going to do with it, unless they also had interdiction, which is definitely a possibility. So our opponent's going to be playing Special Order and getting out Saker. So, alright, so they got their Barrier Breaker. I'm not 100% sure why they'd get their Barrier Breaker out right now and then run, but yeah, it's okay. We draw our Trojan Horse, which is going to make our opponent pay here. And it's sort of a bit of a gotcha card. A little bit too good in this case, I'd say, because all they did was install a breaker and run. And we're just going to trash it, RFG it from the game. That's cool. Because that's a fair thing people end up doing in Skorp decks, right? Yeah. Alright, well, that's one barrier breaker we don't have to worry about, and we just install an ice and pass. There are a couple things we still need to be worried about. Leela is most likely running 2 breakers of each type, maybe just one, like a Fem and maybe a Mongoose or something like that for the Sentry breakers. So Fem is kind of like a backup breaker, but I imagine that there's another Saker in the deck, and there's probably 2 Abagnales or something like that, maybe a Gordian Blade. So our opponent's going to install Earthrise Hotel, get their draw back online. They're struggling a little bit for money. Their draw's been a little weird. Lots of econ though. So we're going to see our Hortum, which is something I'm definitely thinking about. Like, Hortum might be supremely important if our opponent is also doing Amakua, and so that's something to consider, as we saw in the previous game. So here I archived and get back Batty, throw Batty on R&D just to lock out R&D entirely. So feeling pretty good right now about our chances. We still have 4 points. The opponent has 0. All we need to do is score one more 3-5, and we're in really good shape. And if I was my opponent right now, I'd be thinking, well, okay, how do I get out of this situation? I guess Peace in Our Time will help a little bit to get some money. There's a Sakon. There are 2 Sakons. And that just coming up in the wrong order is really unfortunate for my opponent. If they had gotten the Sakons down earlier, they would not have had such problem. They would still have their breaker. They'd be in a much more commanding position than they are now. So really interesting and clever include to put the SACCons in criminal. I think that's smart now. There's a lot of program trashing going around. Here we see Lustig, the sentry breaker, one of the new sentry breakers from criminal, and newish sentry breakers. And so what are we going to do here? We're going to toss a Hortum on the remote. We haven't seen any other breakers yet. And we're just going to throw this SSL on the remote as well. So at the moment, we're pretty good. We just really want to avoid getting our agendas stolen out of HQ because the turning wheel can almost guarantee that they're going to hit an agenda. So we're just going to fast sort of like express them into the remotes and start advancing them that way. Now, unfortunately, because of the two SACCons, we really need to get them to run into that Batty server. That's going to be a problem for them. If we can get them to hit the Batty server, we're in good shape. So here comes a corporate grant and a Gordian Blade. Okay, so we found out that Gordian Blade is their code gate breaker. So they have a 50-50 chance of running this remote if they decided to go for it, and they do. They're going to inside job. So unfortunately for them, there's a barrier on the inside. So we're going to res the Hortum just so that we can res this Tithonium. Tithonium is such a beating right now. So I'm actually going to, I think I chose to forfeit an agenda, but I decided afterwards that I'm just going to pay the credits, so I just fix my credits. And this is going to hurt so bad. So that's going to be 2 trash programs. It doesn't really matter which one we trash because they're just going to sack on it. I don't know why I'm diddling about the choice here. There's no real choice. It does not matter. And we'll do it again. And then we'll trash their turning wheel and then the run. Another option is to trash the same old thing if we were worried that they might be playing, I don't know, some more deep dig kind of like Maker's Eye. They might be on Maker's Eye. It's going to end the run. Yep. So now our opponent is in a rough spot. So the SACCons being taken care of means that they're likely not on another SACCon. So we didn't count their influence yet, but that we just saw 5 influence, and there's probably a paperclip, which brings them to 8. I think we saw Peace in our time, which brings them to 11. And they might have some other tech in the deck as well. So I'm just going to double advance in this remote. Don't think they can get to it. Our only concern would be if they had Special Order Install Breaker Stim Hack might do it. But even still, we're holding Hunter Seeker, and then we'd be able to just blow up their breaker, and that would probably be the game. So it looks like our opponent is just going to take some money and install to us and pass a turn. So we got this one. I'm very pleased with Trojan Horse. I think the card is quite good in Skorp, and I'm interested in playing some more with it. Let us know what you thought about the segment and whether you'd like some more. And this Trojan Horse helped out really well. It's very good. Having 9 ways to trash a program in Skorp is pretty scary. So interested in trying some more. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you next time.